Thank you, Program Director, and thank you to all of you for your participation to this third investment conference, which has now come to an end, sadly because you all seemed to be having so much of a good time talking amongst yourselves and discussing all manner of things. In many ways, this has been a gathering filled with a great deal of promise, but also underpinned by a great deal of optimism. Not a single one of us gathered here exhibited any form of pessimism. It was all about a future that is pregnant with great possibilities. It has also been a very practical conference focusing on numerous opportunities that exist in our country, in our beautiful country, the challenges that investors face, and the measures that must be taken to address these challenges. I think all of those were discussed, and they were discussed very openly and honestly. The world is facing a very difficult time. We are still very much in the throes of a devastating pandemic that has thrown global markets and economies into disarray. Tough decisions have had to be made on investments, on the expansion of various economies, and on entry of various companies into new markets. It has therefore been significant that you have all come here, both in person and virtually, to show that this is a country, this South Africa, a country that you do believe in and want to see succeed. The plenary and breakaway sessions have taken place in the spirit, as I said, of frank and honest dialogue. I was interviewed by up to 3 TV stations whilst the breakaway sessions were going on. And in all of those, there was honest, direct, and very tough questions, but they were all seeking answers on what the future portends. But your engagements here have been driven towards solutions that are also sought to give to those who were inquiring during the TV interviews. There's been an appreciation of the work that has been done to address the challenges of the past and broad consensus on what needs to be done to move forward. And I think if there's anything that can be said about all the social partners who participated in drafting the Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, is that all of them collectively participated in a very transparent, in a very honest dialogue that has led to the plan that we have. This year's investment conference has in the main been about one thing, and one thing mainly: implementation. And it is correct that we're focused on the issue of implementation, which we are, as I said in my initial address, going to be focusing more and more attention on. But it has also been about new investments, about companies that are looking beyond the pandemic to invest in a growing economy. I'm therefore immensely pleased that so many companies, some of which the names we never knew, never heard of before, have come forward, and have come forward boldly, transparently, and determinedly to make their announcements even during this period, difficult period of COVID. There must be something that they are seeing in the future of our country. So I'm really pleased to announce that here today, that we are firmly on track to meet our 5-year target of $100 billion in new investments, which translates, and I don't know whether Minister Patel has actually done the conversion in terms of where the rand-dollar exchange is, but we will stick to the 1.2 trillion rand. In this, the 3rd year of our conference, 50 companies have made investments commitment to the value of, as you heard, 109 billion and 600 million. And Program Director, you're absolutely right. I do wish I could wave a magic wand and get that 1 or 2 companies to say, we will round it up for you, Mr. President, and make it 110 billion. But be that as it may, this brings the total value of the investment commitments over the last 3 years to 773.6 billion rand. It is a whoopingly huge number, and you should applaud yourself on that basis. Now, this represents about 64% of our 5-year target. This year's conference stands out for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is taking place in an extremely subdued economic climate. In fact, we didn't even begin to think that it would come up to 109 billion. We thought it would be far lower than that. There were times during the height of this virus when we asked ourselves whether we should even have an investment conference. In the end, Cabinet decided that we should, and that risk has paid off because some 50 companies have come forward and have said the show must go on, even as our country is going through great difficulties. And we're holding this conference during, as I said, difficult times, because to secure investment commitments of over 100 billion is a remarkable achievement in this particular climate. Secondly, we are seeing significant numbers of smaller, good quality investments in the manufacturing sector, which is a priority for our recovery. A number of the new announcements are from companies that have made investments in previous years and are now expanding and upgrading their facilities and operations, which, by the way, in return is going to lead to further employment, further exploitation of new markets, and therefore the opportunities keep growing. Thirdly, several of the investment commitments made at this conference are in sectors that have been severely hard hit by COVID-19, especially the tourism and hospitality industries. And we've heard them stand up here, well, as announced, making commitments of hundreds of millions of rands, even though they've been in a hugely subdued type of environment. These investments will go a long way towards the recoveries of those sectors. As in previous years, the breadth of investment showcases the diversity of the South African economy. We've always said that we are a diverse economy, and today listening to the names of companies that one never heard of before just proves the diversity of our economy. This year's announcements include both greenfield and expansion projects across the country. They range from advanced manufacturing to the automotive sector, from agro-processing to oil and gas, from mining to tourism and hospitality, from the green economy, which is very important, to telecommunications. So it's a very broad spread and a beautiful and wonderful spread. By bringing investments directly to where people live and work, economic activity is stimulated and opportunities are broadened. Automotive plants are being built as we speak. Data centers have been opened. Ground has been broken on new factories and facilities. Some of them even bringing during the period of the pandemic, as I said initially. Investment brings hope and opportunity to those who need it most, and those are the people of our country. This is the time when we need to be beaming hope and confidence to the people of our country, and it also makes a real difference in the lives of ordinary South Africans out there. We've also seen how companies are plowing back into the communities in which they operate. The stories of a number of companies of how they have embraced community investment, how they are working with communities to invest in people, invest in communities, is something that is quite impressive indeed. Companies are paving streets and improving sanitation, working with local government in a number of areas, and a number of the companies that have made those commitments are doing precisely that. In the far-flung areas of our country, in the rural areas, as well as in the peri-urban and in the urban areas. They are also building schools, they are building clinics, and they're also building housing for their employees. This is what underpins the investment process that many of the companies are going through. It's not about just the public effects of the announcements here. We know that some of those companies are involved in serious community upliftment. They are also establishing training centers to grow a new generation of skilled young people. And they see the benefit in skilling our people and giving a lift, a real spring in the heels of young people by ensuring that they get skills. Now, given the difficulties and the turmoil surrounding us, this conference, in my view, has been a great success. A great success because we've been able to get some 1,700 people to participate across our country and across the borders of our country. I do wish to thank all of you who are here in attendance, and for those who are also participating on the virtual platform. And I also wish to thank those who have made commitments, investment commitments today. We thank you dearly because we never really expected that we would hit the 100 billion mark. I also wish to thank those companies whose generous sponsorship has made this conference possible. And I want to thank Telkom, Naspers, Anglo-American, Huawei, Discovery, and Vodacom for the sponsorship that they gave us. Let's give them a round of applause and thank them for that. I also wish to thank those who've been working for months preparing for this conference. It has taken quite some doing. We may think that it was a walk in the park, but it isn't. If you have to put up a conference of a hybrid nature like this, it does take some doing. And Minister Ibrahim Patel has to be thanked, as well as members of the Ministerial Steering Group or Committee that has met. He, Minister Patel, working with other ministers, I'd like to thank you for having been committed to this task. Not that I never thought you would pull it off. I expected you to pull it off, but thank you very much for having achieved this magnificent outcome. Thank you. I'd also like to thank our advocates for investment, our investment envoys who play a background role, but who interface quite a lot with many of you as investors, and also interface with those who are doubtful investors, investors who are still sitting on the fence, who have not yet made up their minds. I really want to thank them, because quite a lot of what we achieve and have achieved in the past 3 years has been largely due to the work that has been done by our investment envoys. And I really want to thank Jaco Marie for all the work that you've been able to do. Pumzile, Elangeni, Trevor Manuel, Cebisi Jonas, Jeff Khadebe, Derek Hanekom, and Elizabeth Tabete. Thank you very much for all the work that you've put in to make this possible. I also want to thank Rinosi Mokate, Dr. Rinosi Mokate, who sits on the President's Economic Advisory Council, who leads that council of a number of people across the world, and who works with our sister Ngozi Iwela Okonjo, who leads them with a very good, steady hand. I'd like to thank you for keeping close to the processes that we are involved in. You are indeed a steady hand, and I'm very proud to have you as part and the leader of the Investment Council. Thank you very much indeed for being here as well, and for participating in all that you do. Thank you, Ms. Trudy Makaya, my economic advisor, and the organizing committee and all other government departments, the agencies and entities that have been part of this outstanding work. We thank you. We would not have been able to hold this type of conference during these difficult times without you. And most importantly, I'd like to thank our social partners in organized business, in organized labor, and in the community constituency. I'm rather pleased that at this year's conference, you've made your voice heard, you've made your presence felt, and I'm rather glad that this is the way in which we should continue doing things, just to show that our compact goes beyond just writing on a piece of paper, but it actually can be turned into real action. And I'm glad that we've got partners like yourselves who are action-oriented and who will keep on, yes, reminding us as government that we should focus on what needs to be done, implementation, and will also criticize us whenever we fail. Thank you very much for being here and for your participation as well. Now, this third South Africa Investment Conference has given us confidence and hope in the midst of a dreadful pandemic. Our people, like people across the world, have endured much this year. This conference, in my view, strengthens our conviction and our resolve that we shall overcome this crisis, and that the years ahead will be better, they will be brighter, and there will also be more prosperity for all. With your support, we are firmly on the road to recovery. Last night, I spoke to President-elect Joe Biden and congratulated him for the magnificent results he has thus far achieved. And one of the things that he said was that he is going to be committing time and effort to work with our continent, make sure that the interests of our continent are aligned with interests of progressive nations in the world. And he also said that he remembers South Africa very fondly, having been here many, many years ago, and is looking forward to working with us and ensure that we do have prosperity. And that, for me, was the most pleasing conversation, because we will be able to work together as we build our African Free Trade Area market to interface and also to deal with the biggest economy in the world. This could not have come at a more welcome time. So I see prosperity written all over our country. I see us being able to embrace one another, to hold each other's hands as we move forward and deal with the challenges that stand in our way, and overcome those challenges. Unfortunately, we've got a great deal of partners on our continent, and we've got a great deal of other partners across the world. Let's move forward and implement our plan and make South Africa a successful and a prosperous nation. Thank you very much for being here at this conference. Thank you.